Okay. So Etienne, all right, get your say, man. Give him what for. Tell him what's up, and we'll let him respond.
Well, I mean, I should start out by anybody that's not familiar with my work. I am a voluntarist author. My book is called "Government: The Biggest Scam in History Exposed," and in the book, I make the case that government, number one, is always illegitimate. It's impossible to have a moral, logical, legitimate government if you can't, if you can't delegate a right that you do. If you don't have a right yourself, you don't have the right to steal somebody's money and call it taxation. If you don't have the right to make up rules for everybody and call it laws, then you can't delegate a right you don't possess yourself to a representative to represent you doing something that you do not have the ability to do yourself. And so where did the government get the right to do all the things that it did if people can't delegate, if we the people can't delegate rights we don't have? The government has just essentially claimed them and is doing literally a Jedi mind trick on the population, where they force kids into these mandatory government schools and teach them before they're old enough to really, question the logic and morality of what they're told. They're running these unethically manipulative techniques that I break down in the book to get the kids into a religion of believing in the state and believing in the legitimacy, the necessity, desirability of having a state. Just a couple more points on the complete impossibility of having a legitimate government. You cannot be bound by a social contract you didn't sign. So if you didn't personally sign the Constitution, you're not bound by it. And if Ernie and I can't vote that Phranq gives us all of his money because there's two of us and one of him, then it doesn't matter if there's three of us or four of us. And so democracy is the moral equivalent of gang rape or a lynching or whatever. And so there really is, it's been the biggest scam in all of human history. And so number one, to be having the Chump Report for 10 years and promoting the legitimacy of something that's obviously illegitimate on its face, number one, that's dumb, and that's not it's frustrating to have to listen to it, because I'm a big fan of Declare Your Independence. I'm a big fan of Ernie's work and everything like that. And I just had to sit there and just shake my head and go, I cannot believe that they're pretending that this television performer is a clown. Now that's my first.
You're throwing me in under the bus here.
Well, no. So then number two. Wait, hold on. The callers. So that point number one is government's illegitimate on its face. And then point number two is that everything that's going on in Washington, D.C., whether you believe, so I'm a voluntarist, I don't believe in the legitimacy, the necessity, or the desirability of having a government. And so, but even if you don't believe, even if you believe in having a government, a strict constitutional government bound down by the chains of the Constitution, even if you believe that, almost everybody that has two neurons to rub together should recognize by now that the government in Washington, D.C. is being run as a criminal enterprise. Period. End of story. There are trillions of dollars that are missing from the Pentagon.
Are you saying the United States federal government is as bad or worse than Minnesota? Is that what you're saying?
I'm 100%. It's thousands of times, because we're talking about trillions of dollars. We're talking about trillions of dollars that are missing from the Pentagon, and somewhere over 16 trillion according to the work of Dr. Mark Skidmore and Catherine Austin Fitts. Their website is, I think it's Where's the Money, or the Missing Trillions, but you can put in Dr. Mark Skidmore and you can find the scholarship and the behind that. But there's over a trillion missing from HUD and the post office and other government programs that can account for over $1 trillion. And then there's been, according to an investigation called Bloomberg did, there's over 16 trillion that was handed to private banks and private companies like AIG and others during the TARP and the TALF and the Maiden Lane bailouts. And it was funny because I wanted to get my facts and figures straight last night, because I knew I was going to be on here making this point. And Wikipedia does not talk about this at all. They pretend it was the original 750 billion. They don't, they don't get into it. And so that's one of the reasons why we create a Liberator flash drive, because all the stuff that's going down the memory hole about where'd all this money go, we make it, uncensorable. And one of the things that we have on our flash drive of Freedom, the Liberator, is we've got, some of the totals of not only did they give the banks, trillions of dollars in these bailouts, private companies that already have an exorbitant privilege to create money out of thin air using fractional reserve banking, where they're stealing the value out of everybody else's money. And that's what's paying for this monopolization of the media. And that's why Trump's on every, thing. And that's why there's so much controlled opposition. And that's why, because they have got unlimited funds, because they're stealing trillions with a T. But the second point is that this is obviously a criminal enterprise, and Trump has obviously been installed as an actor playing the role of the president, playing the role of a billionaire. He's probably made money now, but just as a reminder, if we go back in time, Trump went bankrupt 4 times, and in his last major bankruptcy in 2093, he was actually bailed out by Rothschild Inc., and the bankruptcy restructuring unit at Rothschild Inc. at the time was run by Wilbur Ross, who ended up being installed as the Secretary of Commerce in the first Trump administration. So the Rothschilds are behind the State of Israel. So you've got a Zionist entity that bails Trump out, has him by the short hairs. And then he is given a television show. Phranq, out of curiosity, do you know who Trump's theatrical agent is?
Theatrical agent? No, I do not. Go ahead.
Okay, so you've been doing this for 10 years and you haven't figured out who Trump's. Nobody's like
theatrical agent.
Yes, Trump has a theatrical. Trump is an actor, and for The Apprentice, and his theatrical agent is a gentleman by the name of Ari.
NBC. Yeah, go ahead.
His theatrical agent is a gentleman by the name of Ari, A-R-I, Emanuel. Ari Emanuel is a Zionist. He's the brother of Rahm Emanuel, who was the chief of staff during the Obama administration and ended up being mayor of Chicago. There's a third brother named Ezekiel Emanuel, who's a eugenicist that thinks that everybody ought to die at age 75 and wrote a book about everybody ought to die at age 75, and he was on Biden's COVID task force.
Wait, real quick. Why don't you define theatrical agent? Since you're coining that term, either that's an official, position that he hired, or
yes.
that's your interpretation. So
all right.
So he's in the so-called phone book under theatrical agent. So what do you mean by theatrical agent?
He's one of the most famous theatrical agents in Hollywood.
Well, I know who he is. It's just he doesn't go by theatrical agent, but he is supposedly the theatrical agent that the movie Entourage is about. And so, he's one of the characters, there's a character in there that's represented by him. He's one of the most famous super agents in Hollywood. And he was behind the scripting that gave Trump the gravitas to essentially run for president. So they took a guy who had 4 bankruptcies and had to be bailed out by the Rothschilds, and then they created a television show about him that made him look like a competent businessman after 4 bankruptcies and having to be bailed out and restructured multiple times. And who I believe they've literally had to keep afloat because he's so incompetent. He did not start with $1 million. He started, this is a guy that was handed Fred Trump's empire, $400 million empire, and then ran it into the ground 4 times and had to be bailed out. But if you watch the television show that they created for him to give him the gravitas to be elevated to the presidency, so that he could, because they had him by the short hairs. And what I mean by the short hairs is, number one, they had him because they bailed him out, and number two, he's obviously in on this Epstein thing. They've obviously got him in compromising positions. He's Epstein's best friend. And so the Mossad has had
this guy by the short hairs, because I guarantee you they've got incriminating stuff on him through the Epstein files. And so a guy that is 100% pure thing gets elevated and made to look like a successful businessman. He's given the media training. He's given the artificial gravitas, and then he's elevated into the presidency with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of Zionist money. And so right now it's over $400 million just from the Adelsons. It's $400 million over the 2 election cycles just from the Adelsons. So you've got a Zionist theatrical agent, you've got a Zionist funder, and now he's transferring. He cranked it up. We were giving like $3 billion a year to Israel. Now we've given over $20 billion a year. We've given Palantir technology. We've stood silent and not stood silent. We have helped the genocide of the Palestinian people by giving them the targeting software Lavender, that Palantir helped develop, which allows the Israeli military to know when an entire family is in one room, so they can get everybody with one Hellfire or one, guided munition in one shot. And so there is a obvious quid pro quo between the people that installed him, created his legend, had him by the short hairs through, in Washington, D.C., what Epstein was doing is known as a brownstone operation. So they had swept him up in a brownstone operation. They've obviously got incriminating photographs and video of him. They've obviously saved him from bankruptcy. They've obviously installed him in the presidency with $400 million just from the Adelsons. Okay, and now there's obvious quid pro quo of him transferring billions of dollars. So what's the organized crime of government? And these are just organized crime families. The U.S. government's organized crime, the Israeli government's organized crime. They're running the same unethically manipulative techniques on their. I just did an Israeli talk show last night where we talked about 2 nights ago, where we talked about the fact that Israel is running the same unethically manipulative techniques on their population as we're running on our population to get them to go along with tricking them into having a ruling class, tricking them into government is legitimate, even though it's obviously not. It's not logical. It's not ethical. It's not moral. And so they're running this game, okay, where there's this obvious quid pro quo where they're spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to buy up AIPAC, to install congressional critters in the House and in the Senate and in the presidency. And then those congressional critters and executive branch moles then transfer in the Trump administration alone, 20 plus billion, okay, that you can put a number on. There's probably more that's in military intelligence and help from Iran. If you included us striking Iran and striking Israel's enemies in Yemen and Iran, it would probably be way, 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 way more than that. And now we're threatening Iran, which is a policy that the number one beneficiary is Israel. And I've been frustrated because, Phranq, it doesn't seem like you can figure this out.
Figure what out?
That organized crime, Israel has installed a front man into the presidency that is transferring billions of dollars and enabling the genocide of the Palestinian people, and is literally stealing, has turned the White House into a private for his family, that he's personally benefiting in the most corrupt ways that has ever been seen in the presidency. The violation
for Israel, is that what you're
for Israel, and for his own personal building up his own personal wealth in crypto scams and in real estate scams, and what's going on with Trump resort and hotel in Saudi Arabia, and what's going on with receiving $400 million jets, and what's going on. There has never been a criminal of this obviously involved, violating the emoluments clause of the Constitution. Even if you believe in the Constitution, which I don't, like if we're going to have this rule book, then let's have a real rule book. And like he's violating every aspect of it, and he's a serial liar, and he's got troops on the streets. He's got masked goons on the streets, which has been a policy. So he's acclimate. They're acclimate. It's not Trump, and again, it's not Trump. Trump is literally a puppet, and somebody above him has made the decision that we're going to have troops on the streets. We're going to have masked goons that can sweep people up, and he is participating in the acclamation of that for the American people right now. And yet you continue to pretend like he is legitimate when he is not legitimate in so many different ways, and shouldn't have an ounce of respect from anybody in this country. And it's been obvious for years and years and years and years. And it makes me wonder what's going on that you cannot see it.